Welcome to Beyond the Plates, Industry Talks by Le Cordon Bleu. In this podcast, we get some real insight into the food and hospitality industry from a variety of renowned chefs, industry experts, and Le Cordon Bleu alumni. Join us as we hear the fascinating stories and unique experiences behind some of the best-known names in the industry.
In this session, I have a pleasure to introduce Chef Ollie Dabbous and Hyde, a restaurant destination where Ollie is a head chef and co-owner. Ollie is recognized for his experimental seasonal menus, which focus on a fine balance of flavors from the freshest ingredients available, which saw him redefine the face of British fine dining. Ollie Dabbous opened his first restaurant, Dabbous, in 2012 to an unprecedented critical acclaim. It fast became one of London's busiest restaurants. He released his cookbook 2 years later and maintained the Michelin star until he closed in 2017 in order to open Hyde. Hyde achieved its first Michelin star right from its inception in 2018. From then on, Hyde has consistently proved its culinary offerings in making it one of the standout food and beverage destinations in London. Ladies and gents, pleased to welcome our guest chef for today, Chef Ollie Dabbous, in this raw talk to know more of his journey and the story behind Hyde. Chef Ollie.
How are you doing, Nitin?
Thank you very much for coming on board.
Pleasure.
Great. I've kind of introduced you in a very overview of how your journey began and the concept of Hyde and Dabbous before. So you can just kind of enlighten your journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, looking back to the very beginning, I think I first started cooking when I was 6, and that stemmed from just a love of eating. Really enjoyed my food, so the natural progression was to pick up a frying pan as I grew up. So cooking kind of exploded on TV. It was more and more popular. The quality of restaurants in London got better and better. So that also fueled my interest. And then I had holiday jobs as soon as I was of legal age to work in kitchens. I spent the summer holidays working. So in a trattoria in Italy, and then also at Kensington Place, I actually met Chef Colin Westall, who's obviously lectures at Le Cordon Bleu, and also in a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Paris. So that galvanized my love of cooking professionally, which obviously is different to cooking as a hobby or domestically, and so for that reason, I didn't bother going to university. I thought I'd give cooking a go, and if it didn't work out, I could always go later if I got decent grades at A level. And then on my 20th birthday, I started at Le Manoir Quatre Saisons, covered every section of the kitchen. I was there for 4 years, and that really kind of taught me the basics. Because I didn't go to college, I needed to learn the basics, on site essentially. So even though I was relatively unskilled and very green, every kitchen needs commis chefs. They need people to do the basic prep. So I started at the bottom and improved and got promoted. And when I started there, I felt like I didn't belong, like I was probably a bit of dead weight almost. So you compensate by starting early, finishing late, working hard, just being very, very humble. I barely opened my mouth for the first year I was there, just said yes or no. And then, by the time I left, I actually felt like an asset to the kitchen, and felt like I could step into any other kitchen and become an asset there too. So it very much kind of forged my confidence. I left Le Manoir to go to Hibiscus, which is Claude Botti's restaurant at the time. Obviously is at Bibendum there now. So I went there. So I took a drop-in position to go there because it was a small kitchen. So I went from kind of junior sous level to chef de partie, and then I rose up to become his head chef. And then obviously working there was very interesting, very different to Le Manoir, because obviously Le Manoir is relatively classic, very clean, garden-based food. But obviously it's a machine, it's a hotel. They do vast number of covers. So whereas Hibiscus was very small, very, very idiosyncratic, maybe a little bit more left field in some of the combinations. So it's very different working there. Then I left there to go to Mugaritz in San Sebastian, and that was again very different. It was much more minimalist style of cooking. There's huge amounts of technique, but very pared back on the plate, which I liked. I found that more striking than quite a busy plate of food. And very interesting seeing Spanish produce, because I'd always worked for French chefs before. And actually the quality of the produce in Spain was incredible. The fish, the suckling pigs, the foie gras, the Pyrenean lamb, a lot of the vegetables as well were absolutely fantastic quality. And when I was there, it was when sort of El Bulli was at its peak, and there was a lot of that sort of conceptual molecular gastronomy, which has its pros and cons. And then I did several stages as well. Stage at Noma, the Fat Duck, L'Astrance in Paris, WD-50 in New York, very top-end sushi restaurant as well. And I think stages are brilliant because they offer you an insight into someone else's kitchen. You get to try the food. They can be expensive. It's still got to pay for flights or trains, a hotel, or whatever it is. If you're doing them abroad, but it always looks impressive on people's CVs. It shows that they're willing to spend their own free time and their own money to become better in their field. And then I wanted to move back to London, and I wanted a head chef position. So I was head chef for the opening of Texture Restaurant in Portman Square. Yep. So the chef owner was Aggie Sverrensen, and I'd worked with him at Le Manoir. He wanted to cook a more progressive style of food, lighter, very healthy. And it was a style of food that I didn't think really existed in London then. So that was amazing being part of that. And Aggie's a good friend of mine, so I was very happy to work hard for him and try and turn the restaurant into something successful. But I always wanted to set up my own restaurant as well, so I had to draw a line in the sand effectively, because when you're working that many hours a week, it's impossible to raise finances, find a site, do a business plan. So I left Texture after a couple of years, and it took about the same amount of time, to be quite frank, to get the money, get the site, and open Dabbous, which was my first restaurant. So that was very much a sort of potted history. Obviously, setting up your own restaurant and has that's another story and another set of challenges in itself. But regarding where I worked to get me to that point, the decision making was always, do I love the food, and can I learn something, from that kitchen? So, first place I worked, Le Manoir, was relatively classic. They're very light and clean flavors. And then the other places I learned were, what I worked at was a bit more kind of finishing school, just getting the little touches or modernism. And then obviously when you set up your own restaurant, that's your window. So you want to be cooking your own food rather than something that's completely derivative of where you've worked before.
Mm-hmm. And then when you started the concept of Dabbous, that was way back in 2012, correct?
It was, yeah.
All the experience what you have kind of amassed working with the food and beverage concepts, very internationally recognized F&B institutions.
Yeah.
did you bring in the wealth of experience which you amassed in these areas and put a bit of elements of this in the concept of Dabbous?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say more than anything, what I brought with me was confidence. You know, when you're cooking in these places and you're a senior chef, you're turning out plates of food that these, you know, internationally recognized restaurants are happy to serve. So you think, well, if I'm doing it here, I can do it for myself. I think what I wanted to bring was a more maybe youthful, democratic feel to the dining room. So rather than, you know, a very bourgeois experience and top end prices,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at Dabbous, I wanted to offer people a great night out, but also serve food that was the same quality of some of these establishments that I'd worked at before, but without the ceremony, you know, or some of the, you know, some of the fine dining touches that, you know, in their own context, you know, are lovely and welcomed, but in a, you know, in a central London restaurant with concrete walls and music playing and, you know, dimly lit, you don't really want ceremony or fluff. So, you know, we wanted to offer something that was more streamlined and pass on some of those savings back to the customer to generate repeat custom and a sense of loyalty.
Right. So we have students logging, students and HLCB community logging from different parts of the world. So for the audience, I would request you to just put some questions in the chat room. I will try to moderate as many questions as possible. It will be based on the relevance and the topics which can be put together for the discussion. So Ollie, when it comes to the next project which you kind of took on board after Dabbous was a hide. If you could just give us a synopsis of how the concept of hide developed and what was the process in terms of the discussion which went into the stages of development from planning to execution. I know it's a vast topic, but if we can.
Yeah, no. I mean, so Evgeny, who's the owner of Hedonism, he'd had that site as a property acquisition and was looking to do a restaurant. Unfortunately for me, he'd come to Dabbous a few times and had enjoyed his experience. And he contacted me out of the blue, and it was at a time when we were looking to do a bigger project. We'd done a fundraise, you know, and were sat on a, you know, around sort of 4 mil, which sounds like a lot, but for a central London restaurant, I mean, you can do something decent with that, but you know, it's an expensive industry. So, but we're just kind of fallen out with the landlord, and we'd got outbids on a couple of sites, you know, by massive kind of high street chains, and the referendum had happened for Brexit, and all of a sudden it was quite a different kind of scenario that we were in, and maybe a less attractive one for hospitality. So we didn't have any sites in mind, and there wasn't really anything coming up. So you know, when Evgeny contacted me, it felt like perfect timing, and I took a look at the site, and I just remember the natural daylight was amazing. It was, you know, on Piccadilly, but it had been triple glazed already, so there was no sound coming in. Beautiful views over Green Park from the first floor. And, you know, after 5-6 years at Dabbous, I mean, it felt like a change, and it felt like we'd achieved very quickly everything we could in that site. So, you know, some people were very surprised at the decision to, you know, to leave Dabbous, because, you know, we'd been full pretty much every day that we were open there. But you know, Dabbous was massively compromised, you know, from the outset, because we opened up with such limited funding, and there was really tight space. So there's only so much we could do with the money we had at the time and with the space we had at the time. So, you know, the opportunity to do something new, something, you know, bigger scale, chance to reinvent was very compelling, because obviously since Dabbous had opened in the 5 years that followed, a lot of places, were kind of opening with a similar aesthetic or feel, and suddenly it felt a little bit more crowded, and time to do something different again. So the thought process behind Hyde was essentially offering a homely luxury in the middle of town. So essentially somewhere you would feel cosseted and nurtured, hence the name of the restaurant, a little bit hidden or cocooned from the world, and without it, wanted it to be luxury but not opulent. So very much a barefoot luxury. The luxury is in the space, the quality of the ingredients, the cooking, the ceramic tableware, all the layers of attention to detail, the Le Labo soaps we have. But it's indulgent, but it's not garish. So we wanted a sense of warmth to the restaurant as well, right? Because a lot of Mayfair places are kind of quite show off, and so we wanted somewhere that felt a bit warmer, a bit homelier, and obviously something that we could offer alongside the wine choice from and spirit choice from Hedonism. That was key, that we'd stocked the entire cellar and people could get amazing wine to go with their food at a very reasonable markup. And it was very different, because at Dabbous I could be a bit more autonomous. Obviously Hyde is completely collaborative, and him and Tatiana had some pre-existing ideas of what they wanted, and that I liked their vision for the restaurant. I think there were things that could that I'd bring to the table as well. And as much as I was fearful that collaborations can end up in a sort of dilution of thought, it actually kind of got the best out of each other. So it worked out very well. And I was going to say, very quickly if you're going to be able to work with people collaboratively, and it always felt very organic. And there might be little things here and there that you might think you'd do differently, but either way, it's like sort of comparing complaining about the stitching in a Rolls Royce. The setting for Hyde is, and the level of investment behind it is more than I'd ever be able to kind of achieve on my own. And so it's it doesn't feel like compromise at all.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Hyde it's now in the second year of inception.
It is, yeah.
It is, and you quickly achieved a Michelin star right from the year one onwards. Now, if you can just tell us about the Hyde as a destination, a concept, in terms of how structurally it is composed of.
Yeah, sure. So it's 3 floors. So we're starting with below, which is the bar. You can come for a drink before or after dinner. So you just come for a drink anyway. You don't need to even have dinner. And it's growing in popularity. And I think Oscar Kinberg's drinks are phenomenal. I set up with him at Dabbous, and are beautifully balanced, very simple, very, again, fuss-free. But when you drink them, the balance is, and the clarity of flavour is just a joy. So that, again, very confident in them, in the level to which they're pared back. There's also a walk-in cellar, so you can choose your own bottle of wine. And you have 3 private dining rooms. You have the reading room, the shadow room, and the broken room. So they seat 4, 6, or 8 people. And then we have above, which is on the mezzanine, or the first floor. So we go from something very dark and brooding to something a lot lighter, more ethereal. again, more spacious, more hedonistic. We want people to really linger here, enjoy an amazing, tasting menu or set lunch. And this is somewhere that, again, should feel like a treat or somewhere to impress your loved ones or a business colleague. And again, when you're eating on this floor, it should feel special, but it should also feel unfussy and and streamline. And if you've only got an hour, we'll appreciate that. Or if you want to spend all afternoon and linger, then there'll be no rush as well. So I think when you have such a big restaurant, you really need to cater for everyone's needs rather than being prescriptive. And on ground, we offer breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a grazing menu throughout the day. So at any point from 7:30 in the morning until last orders for food is about, I think, maybe 10:30. Then we serve alcohol till I think 12:30. So you can get food and drink. And ground is very much the heart of the operation. Probably the busiest floor. Breakfast in particular, I hadn't really worked many breakfast shifts. It was fun coming up with a menu, but I had no idea how busy we would be for breakfast. There's obviously a huge amount of competition around Mayfair and Piccadilly, but I think the level of attention to detail that we offer sets us apart. All the croissants are freshly baked. We make our own jams, whip our own butter. And there's maybe a slightly lighter menu, so a bit more of that kind of Australian or LA kind of brunch feel rather than that more London kind of kippers and smoked salmon feel. I mean, we do the whole range, but you can eat very healthily and also very substantially at Hyde without packing on a load of calories before 10 a.m.
Yeah, well, that explains why Hyde is a destination. I've got some.
So I'd say the things that make us a destination would be, I mean, apart from the staircase, I sometimes joke that I'm the chef with at the restaurant with the staircase. People come to the staircase and they get my food whether they like it or not. But I'd say it's the layers of attention to detail that differentiate Hyde from elsewhere, and like I said, and the quality as well. When you look at everything around you, nothing's been chosen to maximize the bottom line. It's quite the opposite. It's an investment restaurant. When people eat food or it's really important that anything that's tactile, so the cutlery or the glasses that they drink from, feels luxurious. And like I said, the soaps, the way we tie the napkins, things, the layers of attention to detail and the individuality with which we do it that ultimately makes us a destination.
Great. I have some questions coming around.
Sure, yeah.
A question from Georgios. What are the pros and cons in molecular gastronomy, in your opinion?
So the pros are obviously learning the technique. There's some interesting technique out there. The fact they question everything. If we didn't question things, we wouldn't evolve and improve. So questioning everything is very important. The cons are, I think the more you process food, the more you can actually lose flavor rather than add it. And I think it's dangerous when ingredients become subservient to technique. In my opinion, technique is subservient to ingredients, and the role of the chef is to take delicious produce and make it the very best version of itself in a very organic manner. And some of the techniques in molecular enable you to do that, but some of them, I feel, subjugate the ingredient to concept. And I think at the end of the day, it's someone's dinner, and it's you also need to respect the integrity of the ingredient and respect the labor that goes into it. The farmers, the fishermen, the guy that woke up early, went out in the cold, to get the fish, to collect the vegetables. I think the more you think of that relationship, the more simply you want to showcase the food. But I mean, there's pros and cons. I mean, a bit of theatre can add to dinner, but it shouldn't descend into gimmickry. So I'd say it's important to maybe work or learn a little bit with molecular, but also not lose perspective of taste and flavor. And flavor is what you remember. The bells and whistles are exactly that. You remember the amazing lasagna that you've eaten somewhere, or the steak, or the sushi, or the ice cream in Italy. Because it's a visceral, gustatory pleasure rather than something that can be maybe a little bit more hollow.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you're a person who has worked in quite a few destinations, which is quite acclaimed for its molecular contribution, molecular cuisine. Fat duck.
Yeah. I mean, I've used some interesting techniques at Hyde, but they're always kind of hidden, if that makes sense, in the dish. It's not, the technique is there to highlight a certain quality of the ingredient. So as long as molecular gastronomy is used in the right way, then it's for the good. But it's when chefs are maybe looking to promote themselves rather than the food they cook that it can be dangerous.
Okay, great. I have a question leading on to it. What cuisine do you love cooking?
At home, barbecuing and baking, which isn't really a cuisine. I guess that's more techniques. Making fresh pasta, is lovely. But I'd say at work, the thing that I like most is coming up with the new dishes and working with my chefs to get something special on the menu. That process of turning a seed of an idea into a finished plate of food that you feel is unique to you or to the restaurant, that's for me the most fun part of it.
Okay, great, thank you. One last question from one of the students before we go into the next series or next set of discussion points. Question for the chef. Looking back to your career, what are the best lessons learned in terms of keep progressing and becoming a great chef? And what would you say a person should have in terms of soft and hard skills to become a good head chef?
I'd say work ethic is key. Resilience. You're doing a lot of hours, so you need to be willing to subjugate your social life to your career. I think just self-criticism and taste. So if you need to be hard on yourself to progress and basically be the best version of yourself on a daily basis, because you need to lead by example. You set the standard for the kitchen, and then palate. Obviously, you need to know how things should taste, what they need. Your fundamental cooking skills obviously need to be at a very high level to get to the head chef level. I think organization is key as well, because if you organize the kitchen, then all the chefs will feel confident. I want them to think, oh, Ollie's on the pass today. We're going to have a good day. And he might be firm, but there won't be any issues. I always say, let me know early if there's a mistake, and then we can deal with it. Don't hide the mistake, because then it's when you're uncovering issues just before service then that you hit problems. So I have basically recipes for every dish, checkpoints for every food. At 11 o'clock, we try pretty much every element of every dish between all the sous chefs. Ordering, labeling, all these things. You need to be a well-oiled machine. People come to work, they've got a manageable amount of prep. They've got the equipment they need. They've got the ingredients they need. They've got, they feel empowered through the senior team that are there to help them, rather than just to criticize.
Yep.
And I think obviously just remembering what it was like being a chef de partie, having some empathy. And there's plenty of restaurants that people can work in. They don't have to work in yours. So I think as soon as you stop appreciating staff as an asset to the business, I think that's a for me, I've never worked like that. You do hear about a lot of chefs that treat their brigade or members of their brigade as disposable. I think a lot of chefs, they work for not much money initially to further their career. And I remember I'd get spoken to, what I liked, what I didn't like, what used to frustrate me, what used to motivate me. And just try and be fair, but also positive. You have to be positive as a head chef. You need to convey, like I said, confidence, positivity, energy, ability. And because battles spread, and it's brilliant if confidence is contagious, but also nervousness is. So if certain people don't have faith in the team, then or people are scared, then the wheels can fall off very quickly. So I think the main, if I had to give a single point, it would make people feel like they're on a winning team.
Great. You mentioned about organizational importance when you plan your area.
Yeah.
Now, Hyde is one of those restaurants where I've been, where your design aspect of it is stellar. The kitchen, back of the house, the front of house, the interior design in general. It is something very astounding. Could you just probably give a light about the design aspect of it, how you came around?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, with the front of house, that was we had an architect, because there's a lot of nitty gritty regarding extraction and industrial engineering with a building of that proportion. As various, you need to consider the flow of human traffic from walking through the front door to getting their jacket taken, to going to their table, the toilets. So flow is very important when designing a restaurant. Obviously, you've got the aesthetics, and that's the fun stuff. And we used some different like artisans to make either some people that did some almost plaster of Paris paneling with botanicals. Some people that make the light shades. We had a carpenter doing all the tables with the drawers in, with the phone chargers. And then back of house, there's an equal amount of design that goes into it, but from quite different. It's and that starts with the menu. What are you looking to serve, and then dividing the kitchen into the relevant sections. The kitchen for the ground floor is actually in the basement. So the first decision was to put the pass as close to the staircase that leads up it as possible to minimize the distance of travel that the food has. The next was maximizing the visibility of the head chef to all pastas. So you can see the hot pass, the cold pass, and the pastry pass. The next thing was basically the comfort for the chefs. So having the workbenches just 5 centimeters higher takes a lot of pressure off their back. Having lighting that feels as ambient as possible, rather than being kind of stuck in some submarine. And then the temperature as well. So trying to have it as well ventilated as possible. And then other than that, it was maximizing the area of refrigerated storage, because that's always tight. And another thing to consider is distance between workbenches and the stove, or workbenches and the pass. It needs to be 1 step, not 2. So you're almost pirouetting if you're on a section, rather than having to walk back and forth. So yeah, there's a lot to consider, but we worked with an amazing design company, and the installer to get what we were after. So and again, working in other kitchens before was a big help, because you see things you like, you see things you don't like. So it's good to have a bit of experience with other people's budget before taking things on for yourself.
Great. Did you by any chance have a test kitchen before, when you kind of started implementing it?
Yeah, so we what was interesting, I guess, working on a project this big, is that you need to get going straight away in the kitchen, because there's so many staff. You can't have a protracted period of time with 50 chefs before opening. So there started off just 3 of us or 4 of us in a test kitchen on the outskirts of London. Something we rented. We used some second-hand worktops, and we also bought in some equipment early that we would then take to hide. So it wasn't a loss as such. It was equipment that we could use down the line as well. And I mean, there were so many elements, menu items rather. So there's breakfast, lunch, and afternoon tea on the ground floor. Then there was also a tasting menu and set lunch for above. And then we had some feasting menus in the private dining rooms, and the smoothies and the juices, the jams, the croissants, the breads, the charcuterie, the black pudding. There was a huge number of dishes that we had to do to create the different menus on the different floors. And you don't want many people, to be honest. That it needs to be a singular voice behind the opening menu. So I was working with my senior chefs, and then once we had the menu that we're happy with, we cooked it for Evgeny and for Tatiana. Obviously, they were putting large investment in, so it's important that they were happy with what we were doing. And then I then got the next strata of hierarchy, which is all the sous chefs. So that was probably another maybe about 12 people in total. So taught them the dishes in the test kitchen, and then when we moved to Piccadilly, I had approximately 15 people that could train the remaining 40. You can't have 3 people training 50. It would take too long. You need I think a broader base. So it was a kind of pyramid trickle down training as such, and it worked really well. I hadn't done anything on that level before, but a bit of common sense goes a long way. And also we're fortunate enough to have like a 10-day dry run where we could get in friends, family, suppliers, and they'd be our guinea pigs. And so you make big strides quickly. The first service feels really tough, and it can be very demoralizing. I remember the first one out at Dabbous, pretty much just wanted to set fire to the whole place, and padlock myself to one of the tables. I was utterly depressed, and I was so tired, and we were so close to bankruptcy before we'd even opened. And then the first service, where it was like my parents, Raymond Blanc, brother, closest friends and family, and I was just disappointed. It's so much harder than you think it's going to be, because there isn't the protocol. It was really tough. But then the second service, you're so much better than the first one, and the third one you're better still. And at Dabbous I only had, I think, 5 services, so 3 days before we opened to the public, because we had such little money left in the account. Hyde was lucky. We had a full 10 days, so we had close to kind of 30 services before opening to the public. But obviously it's a much bigger team, more moving parts, more things that can go wrong. But both cases, whenever you do finally open the door, you do feel you always feel like you could have another day or a bit more time to get things right, but obviously you just need to get on with it. With Dabbous, I was completely unknown, so it felt like there was less risk in some ways. We were confident in what we were doing, but we weren't confident that people would like something so stripped back. Whereas at Hyde, it's about as ambitious as it gets in terms of scale. Obviously I had made a reputation, so I had something to lose. But no, luckily, on both occasions we got amazing reviews, and also very loyal, base of customers that come back regularly. So, delighted with both, and also delighted that success second time around was in a different manner, and I was probably a bit more mature, so I could actually appreciate it, rather than sort of, when I opened Dabbous, I probably carried this underdog mentality around with me, which is what kept me going. I was functioning off, maybe 4 hours sleep a night. I'd taken out a massive loan personally. The business had, it was very raw, and looking back, I was pretty young. I just turned 30, so it was a lot to take on, and I was very self-critical, and really defined my well-being through the restaurant, and to a point where I was probably a little bit unhealthy, and so it's nice with Hyde, you can kind of share it with the team, and enjoy it with a better perspective.
Great. Thank you. We got some questions coming around, but just before I do the talk through these questions, just wanted to, if you can highlight some key facts of Hyde. Very few.
Yeah, sure. So key facts. Well, I would say key facts, random facts about Hyde. So before it was Hyde, it was a restaurant. It was a Lebanese restaurant on the first floor. It was a French restaurant on the ground floor, and it was a nightclub in the basement. And those 3 different parts were joined together to create Hyde. It is 12,000 square foot.
Oh, that's quite a
it's a big space. We employ, it's 154 people in total. We seat, I think it's 174 if every seat is taken. 6,000 bottles of wine, roughly, about 5,000 bottles of spirits. What else? We need to do about 200,000 net turnover, or a little bit more per week to break even, which is obviously vast. The staircase was the first thing that was started, the last thing that was finished. It was designed in Shoreditch, made it in Poland to completion, then disassembled and then reassembled as a metal framework surrounded by composite aged oak. And there's about 15 different shades of wood stain from light to dark, so you don't notice the difference. But if you look at above and you look at below, you know, they're very different shades of wood. But if you know, when you look at it as a kind of sculpture as such, then you don't notice the difference.
Okay.
So yeah, the food cost, you know, we're hitting around
Information.
about 32%. But yeah, we use a lot of luxury items there. So yeah, I was going to say we try and come in fairly priced. You know, I mean, we're not a cheap restaurant, but I do think we offer good value for money. I mean, with the tasting menu, if you think the amount of work that goes into making those 9 courses, you know, the man hours on top of, you know, the cost of the turbot, the cost of the wagyu, or whatever it may be. You know, chocolate, dairy is very expensive these days. So I think I'd rather charge more but offer something better than charge less and cut corners.
Great. Thank you. I have some few questions which I'll ask right now.
Yeah.
One of the students, Carr, where and who you approach for financing the startup? Are there any agency in industry specialized in lining up investors in startups?
No, it's the kind of $64,000 question for chefs, of finding backers, and you get. I think there's I've heard of something called White Rabbit that I think they turn pop-ups into restaurants. Well, these are more, you know, kind of 50-seat place in Soho or something like that. I mean, it's a tricky one. You need to get lucky to some degree, but you also need to, you know, be investable in. So when I was working in different restaurants, there weren't many people, you know, age 30 that have worked at Noma, the Fat Duck, Pierre Gagnère, you know, Le Manoir, Hibiscus, Marguerite's, you know. So I had a CV that I was very proud of, and was a point of difference, and I'd worked my way up. And I mean, having smaller investors but more of them works well, because no one's investing money that they can't afford to invest, and no one is putting kind of all their chips in and wants too much kind of say. So when I did Dabbous, there were about 20 different investors, all on very low percentages, but all of them, you know, felt they had like some skin in the game and you know, would promote the restaurant. So you can either do it that way or with single backers. With companies, they're more sort of probably private equity based, so that would be more for doing things like rollouts. There are investment companies where you know, they will look to raise money for you, but you invariably need a pre-existing business or, you know, some level of recognition to, you know, to get investment. And with these companies, they often charge either a flat fee or take quite a high commission. So, you know, they serve a purpose, but obviously you get better rates if they're avoided. You know, obviously it's a tricky one, raising finances for restaurants, because they're known to be very, very risky you know, businesses to be involved in. But that said, a lot of people like the idea of investing in a restaurant and of feeling like an owner. So I'd say there's two ways really. One of them is you either work your way up within a company and you reach a point where you can speak to, you know, one of the money people and just say, look, I need to do something for myself, and, you know, offer them the chance to make money on the back of you, but with you having a percentage. Or you make a name for yourself working, you know, as a head chef, but maybe in restaurants that aren't yours. You know, so you could work at a D&D restaurant or you know, other restaurants, either independent or whatever. And if you're the head chef and you do some stuff on social media or TV or Great British Menu, whatever it is, you can become known. And then once that happens, you can look, you know, you'll be in a credible position. But it's a tricky one. I mean, I got in through the back door as such with Dabbous because, you know, I was pretty brazen. I asked anyone and everyone that I knew, and my tactics changed. At the beginning, I was probably too humble and just felt grateful to get an audience with someone who is in a position to invest. And then, you know, I realized pretty quickly that you need to make people feel like if they don't invest, they are going to miss out on something quite special. And, you know, you almost need to be pretty, almost like a bit nonchalant. And, you know, so it's like, oh, if they don't invest, I'll just get it from someone else. And that seems to be more, seems to work better, or giving people timelines that they need to commit to. And again, it's also chicken and egg, because, you know, if you don't have a restaurant site, people can't visualize it, and it just feels hypothetical. So a lot of investors are like, well, where's the site? And you think, well, I don't have a site because I don't have the money. But then you don't have the money if you don't have the site. So for Dabbous, I had a lot of people lined up. I had a site that I had in mind, and then you kind of push on with both. You tell people it's going to be there, and so I was simultaneously giving people instructions to send the money to the bank account whilst negotiating the lease with the landlord, and you hope that both of them come to fruition, and they did, because I wasn't in a position where I had a load of money to kind of get the ball rolling myself. And there was a point in Dabbous where me and Oscar spent our money first, and, you know, if the alcohol review got declined, then we might have been best part of, you know, 50 grand out of pocket, because we needed to spend money on solicitors and on designers, you know, because you need design packs to get the alcohol license and stuff like this. And yeah, we had to put a deposit on the site, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of risk involved with it. So anyone looking to invest, you need, you know, only invest in a restaurant, you know, if you can afford to lose that money. There's more lose it than gain it, you know, than make profit, which is sad but true. I mean, for me, I was willing to lose every penny. I'd worked so hard, I just couldn't not try for myself. I felt utterly driven and compelled, and like I said, I was willing to lose everything, and obviously, luckily, I didn't. But, you know, there's a lot of people that do, so you need to go into it with open eyes.
Okay, great. You mentioned about White Rabbit and the pop-ups and things like this. Yeah. But a question from Thomas here. Hideaway pop-up at Chelsea Barrack.
Yeah.
Ended last December.
Yeah.
So the current climate is completely different to how it was last year. Yeah. But would you have any plans to open up some kind of a pop-up in future?
Yeah, so, you know, never say never. We would look at everything with its individual merits, and it needs to be something that would feel different to Hyde, feel positive, promote it in some way. I mean, with Chelsea Barracks, the guys behind the barracks, the developers, they worked very near Hyde. They're a lovely bunch of people. They loved what we did at Burlington Arcade and wanted something there short term. Excuse me 1 second. Apologies, I'll turn my mobile off. There's a landline just next to me. So we wanted something that would. So the developers for Chelsea Barracks wanted something that to bring a bit of life into the development whilst the first people were moving in. So we were there for a few months and just did just coffees, croissants. It was a very simple offering, but there's a lovely kind of cafe space there. So it worked well, and it wasn't cannibalizing of Hyde's business in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we definitely would do future pop-ups.
Yeah. So got a question coming in. What has been your favorite restaurant culture or kitchen culture from the places you worked, staged, and what have you incorporated or specifically avoided in building your kitchen culture at Hyde?
Yeah, I mean, favorite kitchen culture is obviously the one at Hyde, because it's the one that we drive and define. But the one that was probably most memorable was Le Manoir, because the level of organisation, the level of discipline. I think that was the one that really crystallised, the dedication and the organisation needed, and it was utterly uncompromising. And so I'd say the culture at Le Manoir was the one that was most conducive to my kind of success. But like I said, the one I enjoy the most is obviously the one that I lead as such.
Yep. Now, we do have a lot of questions coming with reference to social distancing and so on.
Yeah.
I'm just going to possibly put a hold there at this moment of time, and I will probably come up with those questions a bit later.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned about different menus, different brigades. You have a large brigade.
Yeah.
Would you be able to just give us a bit more of the details about the departments, the brigade in general, and what kind of training and development do you provide for the staffing?
Yeah, no, so I mean, for Hyde, it's really important that there are clearly defined sections and leaders within those sections and accountability. It's such a broad menu that there can't be anything nebulous in the structure. Of the kitchen that produces it. So we have a breakfast chef, and he has a small team. We have a head baker. He has a small team. We have an overall pastry chef and pastry chefs on both floors. We have a head chef for above, a head chef for ground. We have a goods received chef. We have a kitchen ops manager that does food costings, all the health and safety and hygiene. And then obviously sous chefs on each floor as well. So it's really important that people feel like they're not overwhelmed by the workload, especially because of the level of attention to detail for every element of every dish. And like I said, that then there needs to be protocol. So things like checking the preparations every day, and ownership of responsibility. So it's everyone feels like they can spread their wings and grow within their teams or within the company. And taking ownership is a big thing. I mean, it shows that I've got faith in them, and you just avoid mistakes. And it's not a blame culture; it's a pride culture. It's people, enjoying what they do, feeling proud of serving it. Rather than the flip side of things going wrong, and that was John's fault. No, it was James's fault or whatever. So the ownership isn't, I'd say that, I say that in a positive way.
Great. And the the relationship you developed, and I'm sure you have a lot of students coming around and also chefs coming from different backgrounds for getting exposure in in Hyde. In terms of careers and in terms of advice for students, how do you kind of give a bit of an aspiration to be a professional chef? I've got some questions about that coming around.
Yeah, I'd say I mean, without meaning to sound too bleak, but you know, like I said, you need to subjugate your social life for your career. You know, work hard now so you can reap the benefits later. You know, kitchens are completely meritocratic. You turn up early, you look the part, you work hard, you question things, you eat out, you read, you will progress. You know, it's that simple. You get what you give, and I loved that about cooking. I felt like my future was in my own hands. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's the first bit of advice is, you know, give everything you've got, but
Right.
be smart as well. You know, it's you know, only do it if you love it, and you know, it's not a job, it's not a career, it's a way of life, given, you know, the hours you work and the sacrifices you make. So you know, it's not something you do to get rich quickly, it's something you do because you love cooking, and you know, serendipitously it's a way that you can, you know, make money out of something that you love to do.
Thank you. You mentioned about quite a few emphasis, or probably heavy emphasis, on pastry, baking, and all these things
Yeah.
with the larger operation.
Yeah.
We do have a very huge, strong student body who specializes in pastry.
Yeah.
Any tips, any advices, anything which you can share in terms of how you deal with it?
Yeah, so I think I mean, for me personally, I love working on pastry dishes, baking. It's something that not all chefs kind of like to lead or be involved in. Some people just want to do savory stuff and that's it. But I was baking I worked briefly in the pastry section at Le Manoir, and then always made bread at Dabbous. And we never had pastry chefs at Dabbous. So always did all the desserts really with myself, and we just rotate a different person onto pastry. So we didn't have a big enough kind of kitchen to do it in. Obviously, Hyde's very different. We've got a very talented team. I'd say the craft of pastry is key. I mean, recently there's been a lot of kind of deconstructed desserts, but you know, I think old-fashioned puddings or even modern twists on them are really popular. People want what they can't do at home, and obviously there's a real visual to pastry, but you know, it has to taste good as well. You know, there's some pastry chefs out there and the stuff, you know, looks very impressive, but then you eat it and it might be too sweet or might taste a bit synthetic or whatever. You know, it's got to taste as good as it looks. And you know, I think freshness is important. You know, not everything has to be cooked to a compote or overly sweet. I think, you know, obviously pastry is a field where there's a lot of kind of chemistry involved, but that doesn't mean you can't just have ripe fruit or things that are very kind of sensitively handled as well. And I think more and more people want to eat less sweet things these days. So having a light touch, just as in the savory kitchen, you know, people generally have using a little bit less salt. Equally in the sweet kitchen, using a little bit less sugar. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would be the main tips. But again, just cover all the sections, work for the best bakers, you know, or the best pastry chefs, and yeah, read up, eat out.
How big is your pastry team?
That's about, hang on, 4, including bakery, probably about I'd guess 12 to 14.
That's a decent workforce within a restaurant.
Yeah, it is. But again, everything is done from scratch. So the croissants, the bread, the jams, the butter, ice creams, petit four. It's something that again is a point of difference for us.
Right. You mentioned about a very good talented team. What do you have in terms of training and development? You are one of those who encourages a good talent building and obviously let people go for different competitions and things like this. Would you be able to kind of touch base on what kind of training programs you have and how you foster these trainings?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's a couple of ways we do it really. One of them is obviously just rotating people around the kitchen. Like I said, young chefs don't get paid hugely financially, so they need to feel like they're learning and progressing their career. So the more interest they show, the more time I'll spend with them and nurture them. When we work on dishes, I explain the thought process behind them. I'm happy for my chefs to cook me dishes, a version of which might appear on the menu. And I think, it's just the senior chefs that do that. But I think them seeing their prototype dish to the finished dish, which may be completely different or just a refinement thereof, but usually it's simplifying and usually explaining where the pleasure is, and hopefully seeing the dish through my eyes, or the pleasure, I guess, through the customer's eyes, rather than looking at things from our technique driven or whatever it may be. Often things can be pared back, and then obviously if people want to enter competitions, then we'll let them practice. I'll advise. I don't get too heavily involved. It depends on the person, really. I don't want to be prescriptive on them to win competitions on their own merits, but I'll gladly try dishes they come up with, and help where I can. We're really lucky. We've had two really scholars at Hyde. So Luke, who's my first head chef in Above, and Martin, who's the development chef. So both, technically, very, very gifted chefs who, completely deserved the accolade, and, very proud of, what they achieved. I mean, I have absolutely zero credit to claim vicariously. They won the competition individually. But hopefully a bit of the time they spent.
Yeah, but your support is kind of very incremental in this regard for them to shine in these kind of competitions.
Yeah, I mean, it's you want the best for the people that work for you on a daily basis. So whatever we can do to help, we should. I think it's important as a company to to support the staff. It's not just the payroll at the end of the month, it's all the other things and the empathy that counts. Often the small gestures that count a lot more than you might think.
Earlier on, you mentioned about around 6,000 bottles of wine in the stock. This is something very unheard of in many institutions. Restaurants will not have that kind of much feature. Have a relationship with hedonism, which you told us before. Could you connect those pieces and tell us how you link the hedonism offerings? There's such an amount of astounding number of wines and spirits into your offering. Yeah,
I mean, obviously we want to serve the best possible food and best possible drink alongside it. They go hand in hand. Obviously both businesses share a similar aesthetic in some ways, a quirkiness. Obviously they're independently owned and geographically very, very near each other, but I think obviously the way that we link it is that there's no compromise. We try and be the best in our field in both. The way we make it accessible is not just offering ultra top end. You can come to Hyde and you can have a coffee and a croissant you know, and get change from a tenner, or you can have a bottle of wine, you know, around the, I don't know what the cheapest one is at Hyde, but it's under hedonism rather, but it's like, you know, it's under 20 quid. Yeah, I think the way we see it, hedonism, there's no point offering anything too cheap because you just don't get the value, you know, because so much of you get so much better value just being one notch up at the entry level. But I was going to say another way we make the wine list accessible is through the iPads. So obviously, if you have 6,000 bottles in a document, that's you know, that's obviously a massive wedge of paper that's going to be sitting on the table. So the software in the iPads is brilliant. You know, you just click on your filters, so white or red. You have a sliding scale for your budget, so no less than this, no more than that. And then you know your grape variety or your region, and then the appropriate page comes up. I'm a bit of a technophobe, so for me, even being on a Microsoft Teams meeting is a feels like a minor victory. But you know, when I was first handed these iPads, I was a little bit skeptical, but you know, from a customer point of view, they work brilliantly. So I think it's a great way of making a 6,000 bin list feel very manageable.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now, we all know about the current situation, the present COVID situation. We have so many questions coming on that respect.
Yeah.
But how are you dealing with the present climate? What are activities you're engaging?
So, I mean, we're offering a home delivery service at the moment called Hyde at Home. It's a lot busier than we expected. We didn't really know what to expect, but been really delighted by the appreciation from our existing customers. I think we've gained a new fan base and galvanized the existing one. You know, in the current climate, people, you know, want a bit of luxury, a bit of escapism, something they can enjoy at home, and you know that's exactly what we offer. We don't recreate high dishes, but we do, you know, comfort food well. So it could be a crab linguine or some madeleines. You know, it's dishes that you wouldn't necessarily cook for yourself at home, but you can enjoy it at home rather than anything avant-garde, which probably would feel a bit strange to be eating in a domestic environment. He kept on the senior team. I mean, they've made sacrifices and you know, working hard for the longevity of the business. I think it's important for us to stay open and to offer something. We're lucky because the floor plan of Hyde is quite expansive, so we can have the chefs we have, you know, with them working in sort of segregation. Yeah, we had to get clued up pretty quickly about takeaway packaging and branding and do a, you know, online ordering website, and there was a lot of things we kind of learned on the hop, but yeah, we did that pretty quickly and obviously refined as we went along. And luckily in this scenario, you know, the public are kind of happy for just to get something. So in the early days, when you know, we might not have been quite as slick as what we are now, but we were offering something that they couldn't get anywhere else. So yeah, I think we're a bit like a swan. We managed to sort of you know, glide through while our feet were frantically paddling underneath. And yeah, very you know, happy with how it's going. We've segregated into two teams, so I'm off today, and it's Josh Angus, head chef on ground, who's will be leading the kitchen there at the moment. We thought that was a safer way to do it. Obviously, we have social distancing, but we thought if there's less kind of cross-pollination, that's another thing we could do as a company. The company also covers their transport, so you know, they're getting, if they can't cycle or walk to work, we cover the cost of their Ubers. So again, they just feel comfortable. And obviously, as we employ more people and the virus lessens, then you know, we'll go back to public transport. But while things are at their peak, I think it's important to respect, obviously their welfare and I was going to say it felt very different at the beginning, but we're now in a routine. Hopefully, just one more month of it or so, and we're hoping we can open to some level in July, and realistically there'll be takeaway and or home delivery rather, and the restaurant. But yeah, we'll take it as it comes. But looking forward to being able to serve customers in the building, serve food on plates, and to get people back on the payroll.
I think you covered the social distancing questions, which has been flurrying around here in a detailed manner. I think you've kind of covered most of it. Now, I think we are just closing. The time is almost up. Just before we move on, one question for you. What are the future trends in food? What would you think about the future trends in food? That is casual dining, health dining, fine dining. How do you think it's going to go from your opinion?
No idea. I'm always rubbish with trends because I always just do what I want to do, and that isn't always the most commercial kind of view. But I mean, whenever I get asked this question, the stock answer is that healthy food isn't a fad. More and more people want to eat healthily without it being eating healthily or making it's no longer a deliberate decision that you should be doing something. It's an ingrained decision that you just that people take. So they don't think they should eat a fruit salad because it's healthy. They eat a fruit salad because they want to eat a fruit salad, not because it's the low calorie option or whatever. Same with all the grains, all the pulses, all the vegetarian food. It's become more and more ingrained rather than a kind of hippy dippy, someone's going for the quinoa salad. It's it's mainstream now and popular and more so. I think potentially with post-pandemic, people will appreciate restaurants more and won't just be looking for the cheapest one. They'll have cooked for themselves at home and will have seen that you can't really recreate certain level of restaurant food. So I think there'll be fresh appreciation for the craft behind it. I think there'll be fresh appreciation for the for human contact. I mean, yeah. Other than that, I mean, nothing. There's no crystal ball per se. But I think people will always be happy to pay for quality. And I think that the golden rule in hospitality is don't look at your bottom line. Look at creating the best possible product, and if you do that, profit comes. It's when it's when you start looking to save money or cut corners here or there that the customer sees it. And so just offering a great product at a fair price would be the best rule. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter what food you do, you'll do well. But I think the other thing is with things like raw fish and salads, there's it's easier to make money from them because there's less shrinkage as things cook. There's less waste. They're healthy. You need less chefs because there's less elaborate processes. So I think these kind of fresher, simpler, more ingredient-led foods are actually also more financially viable. So it's and only going to be more popular. So I think some of those sort of LA concepts are going to be coming over here.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have covered a lot of topics and interesting points of discussion here. I would say thank you very much for your time. I would say
Pleasure.
wrap.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ollie, again for gracing your presence in our chat room and inspiring all our future chefs and the Cordon Bleu community. On behalf of all of us, we wish you more laurels and continued success. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye. Thanks, Ollie, once again.
Cheers. Take care, everyone, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Plate, Industry Talks by Le Cordon Bleu. Keep up to date with all our news and episodes by following us on social media or by signing up to our newsletter. Links are included in the episode notes. Until next time, à bientôt!